One of the most common tax breaks taxpayers get is the health expenses tax break. So basically, if you spend money over health-related issues, they can be pharmaceutical products expenses, they can be doctor appointments, whether they are public or private, costs and the other items to sustain your health, or other expense performed for individuals with disabilities. Those expenses can qualify for a 19% break. So let me explain you. Whatever amount you pay, first of all, it's on the cash basis. So you deduct it whenever you pay. And the cutoff date is December 31st of any given year. So this decides on during which year you can deduct the item. Second, what happens with your receipts? You need to have the receipts. You need to have a declaration by the pharmacy, by the doctor, which is of course the invoice or the pharmacy bill, or you must also have a declaration by the local retirement home or any other hospital to say how much money you paid, how you paid it, and it needs to have your codice fiscale. If you do not have those receipts, you cannot claim those. It's not enough to have the bank expenditure. So if you can show that the money was out of your bank account, so you paid for that, that is not enough. You need also to prove what kind of activity you performed in order to deduct it. Now, how will they investigate that? Well, if they run an audit, they can figure that out as they ask you, hey, please provide me the supporting documents. And if the supporting documents do not match the amount you have written in your tax return, that's also a problem. So now let's go deep into the calculation on how much tax break you can get. And before we do that, let me tell you that this is not a tax planning exercise. I do not wish anyone to spend more money on health-related expenditures so they can save on their tax bill. I hope you all are very healthy and don't spend a dime on that. But if you should do that, at least try to save the maximum on your tax bill. So first, any expenditure up to 129 euros accrued, so if your total expenditure during 1 year, tax year, is less than 129 euros, you do not get any tax relief. So you can even disregard to keep the receipts as you don't get any reduction in your tax bill. Any euro above that, you get a 19% break. So let's say that you spend 200 euros on a dentist on a year, and that's your sole expenditure. The qualifying expenditure then becomes 71 euros, multiplied 19%, that becomes around 13 euros. So whatever your tax bill is, you reduce that by 13 euros. So that's the tax saving you have. Second, there is no cap on those expenditure. You can spend as much as you want and you can get as much relief as you want. However, there's no negative tax. So what happens if you spend a lot of money during a year? Well, the possibility is that you can spread out the cost through different years. So let's say that you spend 20,000 euros on a given year for a major surgery. Well, you can reduce your tax bill, put in 5,000 euros for 4 consecutive years and deduct your expense. And this is made not to create any disadvantage to an individual who has to undergo major health expenses. And finally, there's a specific provision for individuals with disabilities. There are certain qualifying expenditure that can become deductible items against income instead of against tax. And this normally happens if you are a disabled individual and, for instance, you spend money for a retirement home, for the social assistance, for the health assistance. In that case, the expenditure is more efficient on your taxes. You get a larger tax saving, as the minimum tax saving you get is 23%, as those items will reduce your taxable income, therefore they will reduce tax at the marginal rate. So potentially you can save 43% of that expenditure on taxes. And finally, remember, those items can only qualify against income tax, not substitute taxes.